Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Comics Della Morte, episode 83. And we got a new guest on the show. His the co-writer or co-creator couldn't come on, but yeah, Frankenstein the Unconquered. So before we get into your book, just talk a little about, you know, raising up. Did you draw and write comics or stuff like that when you were a kid, or was it later in life that you wanted to do this?
I'm Dalton. Like you said, co-creator and writer of Frankenstein the Unconquered. Um, as far as comics themselves, I can't remember a time before comic books. Honestly,
Hmm.
my earliest memories are like picking up Dave Pilkey's Captain Underpants novel series, and in that book, two 8-year-old boys make their own comic books, and at 8 years old, I was like, oh, I can do that. Okay, easy. And so I would just write and draw comics all the time. And the older I got, the more I started leaning more into the exclusively the writing process. I still
Hmm.
draw, but all the projects we have going on, I'm a co-writer on. So
Gotcha.
yeah, it's been a lifelong obsession with comic books for me. There is no plan B, so comics had better work out, you know.
Gotcha. And with this comic that you and your co-writer made, like how long was that in development? Like, did you guys have this plan like years ago and you
Oh
just
man,
talked about it like, oh, we'll finally get to it. We'll finally get to it. And then it's like, okay, now we're here. We finally
yeah.
have to do a go at it.
So Frankenstein has been with us from the beginning of our collaboration. Wells and I met in college and started working together probably about 5 years ago professionally. And we started off doing these little ash cans, 8 pagers, as kind of writing exercises. And we would do horror books and we would do sci-fi and all sorts of stuff. And we
Awesome.
made those all in house. So we co-wrote them and then I drew them and then we would print them up and staple them when we take them to shows. They're not very good. I've actually got the first one of Frankenstein right here. So Frankenstein was one of the titles that we actually started off doing.
Hmm.
Uh, and we made about four of these guys uh, and took them to shows and, you know, people would pick them up every now and again. But it wasn't until we met our editor, Andrea, at a show, and he's like, "Oh no, these are great. Can't use the art, but these stories are great." And so he hooked us up with some actual professional artists, and we actually
Gotcha.
collaborated on a horror anthology, Descent into Dread,
Sweet.
through Caliber Comics. So we co-wrote all the stories in the anthology, but running throughout, we brought Frankenstein back. So all of those ash cans, we had a facelift. We gave them a facelift with professional artists, and Frankenstein continued to permeate our work. And we always knew we wanted to make Frankenstein into an ongoing.
Hmm.
Uh, I, I had initially envisioned Frank as like a space pulp where he's traveling the stars with a broadsword and a ray gun and killing aliens and stuff. But then it felt more uh, natural to take the monster and mix it with the pulpy roots of Conan the Barbarian
Yeah, I
and
could
make it
definitely tell that with the artwork
yeah.
and just the style.
Oh man, it was like I felt kind of it was like I was getting away with something because it's such a concept that to me just seems so obvious, and I was like, how has nobody done this before?
Right.
So we struck while the iron was hot, so no one else could do it now ever again. Uh, but yeah, Frank's been with us from the beginning, and we love telling these stories about a monster
Hey, Gary.
being a monster, killing other monsters, and then maybe through all that violence, finding out just how much of a monster he himself is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, per se, how long do you guys think this story took you to do? Like,
Uh, this issue in particular, or like the series as a whole?
series as a whole? Like, do you guys got it all completely right out, or you just working on it one by one?
Uh, so
Because it
Wells,
sounds like you already have like a ending plan.
yeah. So when we did those ash cans, we did like 4 or 5 issues. So we have like a rough skeleton of like the first arc in there, and we kind of beef it up and extrapolate and really kind of dive into the meat of the story there. Um, Wells and I are two different writers. We have different strengths, and which is why we work well together because we can kind of balance each other out. Uh,
Hmm.
Wells likes to write issue by issue in case things kind of, we take a left turn we weren't expecting. Well, then we don't have to do a bunch of rewrites. And
Gotcha.
I'm very much the guy who likes to like fit it all out, and
Yeah.
then I'll go back and I'll start chiseling at it here and there. So
Hmm.
our other series, Mechaton, that we're actually working on as well, we're going issue by issue with that. Wells kind of has the reins on it. So we have like a rough outline, but we're going issue by issue. With Frankenstein, I wrote all 13 issues in like a month. And
Wow.
so we have the entire series laid out. There's no guarantee it's going to stick to it as rigidly as the scripts have it, but
Hmm.
we definitely know where it starts, where it ends, and all the fun in between.
Nice. Really, that's awesome. Congrats on that.
Thanks. We
But
That's why we're
you
so
said,
excited for the Kickstarter because we're finally
yeah.
it's been in the works for so long, and now we actually have pages from Mary, and like it's all coming together, and it's better than we ever could have hoped it would be.
Yeah, I really dig the front cover here with
Oh,
Frankenstein with the
Heather,
sword.
yeah,
Yeah.
Heather Vaughn's cover is so striking. I fully believe Frankenstein was as successful as it was because of Heather. That
Right.
cover is I think I'm gonna make a giant poster of it so I can hang it up in my office.
Oh yeah. I like the font too. That's really nice.
Yeah, that was Brenda Snelby is our design lead. So she handles all of the logos and the interior dress and all the stuff that makes Frankenstein kind of feel like Frankenstein on a subtextual level. That's all Brenda. It's great.
Hmm. So with the campaign, for all the audience that are listening and going after listen after the show,
Oh,
what
I think
type
I
of
lost
tiers
you.
do
I
you have?
can't. Are you talking?
Oh, can you hear me now? Hello?
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me? If if anybody in the audience could hear me, let me know.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Looks like
Okay.
my headphones decided to crap out on me at the worst possible time. Sorry about that.
No, it's not a problem. So I was gonna say, what type of stretch goals or and tiers you got going on offering to the audience?
So, for this Kickstarter in particular, we have the stretch goals. Stretch goals usually aren't implemented until we meet our funding, and then
Hmm.
if we hit certain stretch goals after that, then we start announcing the goals. I know we'll probably do what we did with the last campaign with Frank, where one of the stretch goals will be a text chapter in the back of the book. We wanted to kind of
Gotcha.
pay homage to all of those old pulps uh, and put Frank in a literary space again. So
Hmm.
the first issue has a text piece, Scrolls of the first chapter of Scrolls of the Vanquished, where it's a continuing series that's
Thanks,
separate
sis.
from the main ongoing Frankenstein narrative, probably more of a prequel than anything else. Um,
Hmm.
so that'll probably be one of the stretch goals. I know for the first 72 hours of the campaign when it
Hmm.
launches, we do offer early bird specials, so that's 20% off of all of the tiers, and we will have stretch goals within that 72-hour window. So like if we reach funding within the first 72 hours, we're thinking about having really nice special like bookmarks done to
Okay.
since Frank's such a cool literary figure, we wanted to have Brenda maybe whip up a really nice bookmark. We're still kind of discussing stretch goals themselves, but those are always more developing than anything else. Um,
Hmm.
but when it comes to like reward tiers, um, for Frank number two, we're offering a we're going to have four covers, actually. We're going to have the main cover by Heather Vaughn, which is fantastic, has Frank fighting the Wolfman on it.
Nice.
We'll have a variant cover by Kay Lynn Smith, which is kind of more of a slice of life, takes it kind of more into a more grounded, real world kind of humorous, so almost has an Archie vibe to it, which is really cool. And then we're actually working with Flops, who worked with us on the previous campaign. He did the pinup with Frank and the Bride. That should be somewhere on that page as well. Flops is actually doing our first Not Safe for Work variant cover that we've ever done. We're dipping our toes into the pool and seeing how we like it. That'll be one of the tiers. And then we have a foil edition cover as well, which we offer on all of our campaigns, which is a really nice metallic sheen on the front cover. So the foil and the Not Safe for Work variant will be their own tiers, but the regular cover and the K-Lin variant are all going to be on. You can kind of pick and choose which one of those you want, or you can always pick up additional copies throughout the campaign as well if you like. So
awesome.
And we've also got add-ons like our. We worked with Jacob Fleming on the last campaign to do a tabletop RPG set in the Frankenstein universe.
Very cool.
So that will be an add-on that you can pick up through the campaign as well. We have commission tiers set up to Mary, I think, is doing 4 of those this time around. So as you can see from the art that Mary is able to produce on this kind of Image Comics, super detailed, heightened action kind of level.
Oh, hell yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, she's so fantastic. She's worked with Todd McFarlane on Spawn stuff. Like it's insane how talented she is, and we're so lucky to have her. But you would be so lucky to get one of those commissions from her. She's super great. And I think the last tier that we are extensively looking through is the Adopt a Page tier, which we implemented on our last campaign with Mechaton. But since a lot of, all the artists we work with work digitally, so we can't really give out pages. That commodity is not really a thing in the digital age. But with the Adopt a Page tier for the price of the art itself, we actually will. You get to pick whatever page of the book you want, and then we will have a little dedication at the front of the page saying that this is your page, and then we actually will print it off on on an 11 by 17 print, or I can't remember if we were going to actually do canvas or like metal prints, but at the very least you'll get an 11 by 17 print of that page, one of a kind. You won't get anywhere else. And we have a slot for every single page of the book that way. It's a really cool idea that we haven't seen a whole lot of other campaigns implement, that we're excited to see kind of grow intermittently.
Gotcha. That's awesome. But yeah, I really love the work.
With this next issue, especially with the Wolfman coming on board, that art is like those pages in the adopt a page category are going to be hot commodities for sure. Yeah. So and Mary's art with Dahlia Maha's colors on that, like Dahlia.
Oh yeah, the colors are amazing.
Oh, man, just the way that pops, that kind of duotone kind of. It's just, I can't speak enough good things about Dahlia's colors.
Now, with you and your co-hosts, you guys are like living in 2 different states. Like, I know we've had other people on the show that they're both co-writers, but they usually live, in the same state or like hours away from each other. Like, it's probably a lot easier now because everything's email wise, but do you guys still have problems like communicating and getting a hold of each other because you're probably in 2 different time zones?
Thankfully not. Thankfully, Wisconsin and Tennessee are both central.
Gotcha.
But it can be a little headache inducing. I know, especially on Wells's end, because I can be a little hard to get in touch with.
Gotcha.
It's just the 2 personalities, because Wells is always sometimes it seems Wells never takes a break, which we all tell him desperately, dude, you need to take a break sometimes. And he'll be the first to tell you, nah, I'm good. I'm breaking at the seams, but I'm good. And then I'm almost on the exact opposite side where I maybe take it too casually. And so it can be a little obnoxious for him because sometimes the communication can be a little difficult, but we have made it work really well so far. Like I said, we appeal to each other's strengths and weaknesses. He's super great at like theme and characters and that narrative through line of a series, and I'm great at like dialogue and action and momentum. So like if anything's starting to slow down, I can come in, or if things stop making sense, he can come in. And we're able to we have weekly phone conversations all the time, and we just kind of talk and we plan. We just try to make sure we're both on the same page about things. It can be a little headache inducing on both ends, but we make it work, and it's always a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's just great because like you guys and everyone else that we've had on the show that they're both co-writers. It just really shows that if you're passionate enough and you have a person that really understands what you're trying to do, you could easily write a book with someone else and don't have to be afraid of like doing it by yourself.
Yeah, it's great having that support system. Because I mean, like, yeah, I can show my work to my wife all day, but I wouldn't say that, you know, I would trust her judgment about my work. Whereas with someone like Wells, he's the guy I trust the most when it comes to my work, because he's, you know, he'll tell me if it's crap, or if it's gold, or if it needs a little polishing, and I do the same with his stuff. It's a partnership that has to be born through trust. It can't, if you don't have that trust, then the partnership's not going to work. And thankfully we found that, and it helps being friends too, like just being good friends.
Yeah.
And
I seen that you guys got your own company name or logo company name, like the four
color. Yeah.
Four color.
That's how we started off. Was let me see if I've got a picture of it. I don't know if you can tell up here in the top corner. We even made our own little corner box. It's
Sweet.
4 color media. We did we still use that for all of the projects we do together. It's we used to have a website where we would post all the ash cans and things, but the site's been discontinued. We found it was probably better for the end goal if we each had kind of like our own separate things going on, you know, where we were marketing ourselves under our own names rather than a non-existent company that's kind of hard to type into a search bar because of the spelling of color.
Yeah, gotcha.
So no, we still do use 4 color. We put it on the back of every project we do together. So it's kind of that stamp that you know that we were working together on it. But it served its purpose back in the day, and now it's more of a symbol than anything else. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, because I was like, I found the link to the to the Kickstarter, but I'm like, I don't know what their social media is or anything. So probably after the show, if you could send me like any links to that, so I could have people like go to your Instagram, Facebook, whatever you have, just to show you support and follow you.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've also got the link for the Frankenstein issue 2 Kickstarter just got approved from Kickstarter, so that's live right now.
Awesome.
So we'll actually, I can probably put it in the chat here, and that way we're all good to go. But no, you can keep going. I'm just looking.
Yeah, not a problem. So with you know, just hearing that you love Frankenstein, why did you pick Frankenstein to be the main character of this book?
So Frank, well, for one, Frankenstein's probably my favorite of the classic like Universal monster characters. I mean, Lon Chaney Jr.'s Wolfman is a close second, but Karloff's Frankenstein always fascinated me. And on a literary level, I mean, Shelley's original novel is it doesn't get better than that when it comes to classic. sure.
as all what I always tell people, it's not that Frankenstein's monster's scary in a sense, like he's gonna kill people like Dracula and the Wolfman, but
Right.
it's it's a tragedy. Like
It is.
literally, you know, I believe it's with Frankenstein Alive Alive, he's like he doesn't even know who he is because he's made up of
Hmm.
so many body parts. And it's like, if I'm playing the violin, is am I do I know how to play the violin or the person that I use their body parts know how to play it? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a very tragedy story.
Yeah. No doubt. And uh, the themes that kind of permeate that novel of violence and like this not only violence that the monster uh, pursues on his own, but the kind of trauma and violence that is passed down to him from Victor,
Yeah.
that kind of lead to Frank doesn't trust anybody, and he always feels the victim, and in a lot of ways he is, but it makes it this Frank can't see a friend in anybody, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is kind of that's a flaw, and it leads to this kind of this toxic kind of view of friendship and masculinity and humanity that Frank can't seem to let go of, and to merge that with that pulpy Conan the Barbarian, Doc Savage kind of
Oh
like
yeah.
power fantasy that people don't tend to read a lot into past the aesthetics. To kind of merge those two into one thing and really dig deep into why these themes and these actions that the characters go through, why they matter and why they're not a good idea. Like there are no good people in this book, and Frank least of all. He is a monster through and through,
Yeah.
and so he's a great character to use to kind of show how much of a monster he is, why he's a monster, and hopefully by the end of it, maybe he can start to heal a little bit and not be this and not be a monster anymore.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I see you have it set in a like apocalypse world. Like,
Yeah, it's set about 500 years after the end of Shelley's novel. So he goes into
okay.
the ice. He goes into the ice at the end of the novel, and he kind of hopes that he's dead. But then
Yeah.
thaws out 500 years in the future, and we've the Earth's been through some stuff.
Hmm.
So it kind of allowed us to have a playground where we could do anything with, and it also gave us a an excuse to kind of give Frank a second chance. Um, in issue number one, Frank
Gotcha.
comes out of the ice and he meets people that could barely be considered people. Like everyone is kind of as hideous as he is. Like everybody's a monster now. So this is like the best
Oh,
place for
mutated.
him. So
Yeah.
yeah, they're
Gotcha.
mutated. They're if Frank was ever going to fit in anywhere, it's here. And so like he has a moment of peace,
Hmm.
but the very nature of Frank himself can't let that chip on his shoulder go, and violence ensues, and he messes it all up, and then we get to really use that post-apocalypse to just kind of throw everything at him, like the way I like to imagine our post-apocalypse kind of like the Simpsons Springfield, if that makes sense, where there's not a hard geography to
Okay.
anything,
Yeah. Gotcha.
but if we need something, it can
Hmm.
be there. Like we want a playground to really explore cool visuals first and foremost, badass action,
Yeah.
and then really dig into the characters. It's a great way to just have a clean slate and not have to worry about a ton of like minute world building and things that like a typical
Oh yeah,
fantasy
for sure. I
would do.
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see how hard it would be if you had it like in, the 80s, 90s, but like
Mhm.
with the apocalypse world, you could play around with it. You don't have to set to
Mhm.
a certain standard of what happened during that time period.
Right. Like bad stuff happened. That's all I need to know. And now we have
Mhm.
swords and laser pistols and giant monsters, and it's great. We go from there.
Awesome. Got to keep. That's awesome. Awesome stuff. So, but man, 13. That's awesome.
Yeah,
So
we
with
have it's kind of split into two distinct arcs. So we have like the first 6 issues is a his return to Earth after being exiled into space and his
yeah,
revenge
okay,
quest therein. And then the last 6 issues are his kind of quest to find a new place in this apocalypse. There
yeah,
is there's a driving narrative in that second arc that is a bit of a spoiler, but it's Revenge Quest kind of part two, and then we have a buffer issue in the middle to kind of separate both arcs. So we're really excited to not only show all the cool stuff in every issue, but to reach that culmination and
hmm
just there's so much cool stuff in this book, guys. So much cool stuff.
yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to see what more you guys have going on because it's just really fast. It's really fascinating right now,
Yeah, and
especially with the whole like like you said, Frankenstein's monster meets Conan. I was like, oh, I just
mhm.
want to see him have a love interest and all
Yeah.
that stuff. That'll be cool.
Oh, and as like a universal monster head myself, like you
Hmm
better believe they're all showing up. Like we got
Oh,
Wolfman,
good.
Bride, Invisible Man, the Creature, Mummy, all sort. Like they all show up in one way or another. Maybe not in the way you expect or remember them, but the universal characters. Heck, we're even bringing in Abbott and Costello a little bit.
Oh, that'd be sweet. I like that already. But yeah, so you know, there's pretty much let's see. With the artist, like, did you find her or did she just have like something out on social media? Like how did you go about finding this artist?
Yeah, Mary Landro. I think she's like a 24, 26 Canadian artist. She's super sweet,
Hmm
super talented. We actually found her when we were putting together the Descent into Dread anthology. Um,
Yeah.
we found her work online, and we actually worked with her in the book. She didn't do any Frankenstein in the book. She actually did like a
Gotcha.
this kind of another kind of sci-fi horror story. But we loved that like super rendered cross hatching, super shadowed. It it was super intense, is what it was,
Yeah.
and we knew that it would be perfect for Frank. So
hmm
we talked to Mary almost immediately after the anthology wrapped, and we were like, "Hey, we want to do more with Frank. Would you be interested in jumping on board?" And she's been enthusiastic since day one. Like she's always saying that she never gets to draw as cool stuff as she does when she's drawing Frankenstein, which always makes me feel happy.
Oh
And
yeah.
and she always makes it better than I could have imagined in the book. Like it's easy for me to just write in a sentence, double page spread. Frank is fighting a Hydra and a Weather Witch, and he's conquering kingdoms in this big montage. And it's another for her to just do it. Like
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
incredible.
for a lot of us, it's one of those things like, you have those people that are diehard Batman fans. It's like, oh, I just
Mhm.
want to draw Batman as a career. But then, people who love monsters and sci-fi,
Mhm.
drawing Frankenstein in your own style, like, why
Yeah,
not? I
like
mean, I
you get
would
to
love
say
that.
this is my version of
Yeah,
Frankenstein,
yeah.
and not a lot of people get to say that. Which, by the way, also if you check Mary's Instagram out, I think it's at Mary at Landro Art.
Mhm.
She does a ton of like Batman, Joker, Spawn, all sorts of stuff. It's
Gotcha.
incredible. She's gonna be working on big two books sooner or later, and we're so lucky to be working with her. She's great,
Sweet.
sweetest girl in the world.
And for anyone that doesn't know out there, with the Frankenstein and Dracula stuff, all that stuff is public domain.
Public
So you
domain,
can make your own stories. You know, you just can't make it
mhm,
look like the universal style.
correct.
Even if you want to make like I know it's weird, but even if you want to make your own Wizard of Oz like horror version, you could do that. You just can't make them look like from the movie.
Okay, see, now that's an idea.
Yeah. But so we're in the half-hour mark. I mean, I don't know if you want to promote anything else about the book before we get into the questions with the horror stuff.
Yeah, just if you dig horror, especially of the universal variety, if you dig pulpy sci-fi barbarian action, Frank's the book. I posted that. I've actually posted the link to the sign up for the Kickstarter, so you can be notified as soon as it launches. We do have that 72-hour.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that in the description after the show.
The first 3 days of the campaign, everything's 20% off for our early bird specials. So if this sounds like something you want to get involved with, I mean, we're offering the first 2 issues are in the campaign, so you'll be able to catch up easily if you missed issue number 1, and it's a hell of a time.
Sweet. So now we're going to get into the questions part and just get to know you as like a creator and like
Yeah.
your likes and dislikes, because sometimes that's the thing that as a comic book artist, a lot of the times people, they're going to draw attention to your stuff, but they really want to get to know the creator,
Yeah.
especially if you're like in the horror realm and everything, because when you get older, I don't know how old you are, but it's like the older you get, it's like you still really want to draw gore and monsters. Like, why not?
Oh no! Literally every creative decision I've ever made has been fueled by the idea of, would 8-year-old me think this was cool? And here we are.
Yeah, it's basically like the teacher talking to the kids in Monster Squad. It's like, I dig it, man. Monsters are cool.
Yeah, monsters are cool.
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
But so we'll start off. What is your favorite horror movie of all time and why?
My favorite horror movie of all time. There's lots to pick from, and none of them are.
Oh yeah, there definitely is.
Yeah, but none of them are like the deep cut. Like I'm not the guy who's going to be pulling out like my favorite superhero is Superman. I kind of like the basics here and there.
Yeah.
So I love Karloff's original Frankenstein.
Okay, yeah.
Love that stuff. And Carpenter's original Halloween is also a favorite we watch every single year, without fail. So it's I like old movies a lot, so that original 31 Frankenstein appeals to me not only on an aesthetic level, but on a technical level. Like the way they would have to even shoot a scene to even begin to make it work or make sense back in 31 just astounds me every time I watch it. And Karloff's performance is transformative. Like it's a work of art that is only surpassed maybe by Bride of Frankenstein. And I don't rate that one higher just because I don't like it when Karloff's monster speaks a lot. But that's just a personal preference, not a technical preference. Like that movie's brilliant too. Like
gotcha. That's cool.
Yeah, all the Universal stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. And so with the next question, who would be your favorite 80s slasher and why?
80s slasher. I mean, it's Mike. It's Mike.
Gotcha.
Yeah, little Mikey. I love the over the top nature of that era of slashers. I've always like the slasher as a genre always fascinates me, especially it makes me ache for like a never ending slasher kind of like it. Okay, hear me out here. I was watching Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 one time. Terrible movie. Hate that movie. I hate it so much. But there's that one scene where Michael's just by himself walking through like an open field, and he just runs into those 2 people in the truck, and he's just got like a long hair, the shaggy beard or whatever, and like it speaks to like this non-plot driven slasher film that I didn't get to see. Like where Michael started and how he got to the truck, and then from the truck to go killing other teenagers in suburbia. Like, I've always wanted to see a slasher that's like a TV show that never ends, and so I'm trying desperately to get Wells to help me make a slasher that never ends. And Michael is like the slasher to me. As much as I love the over the top nature of the kills of Friday and Nightmare, I don't know. Michael just creeps me out the most, and also I just love I love Jamie Lee Curtis. She's the spring.
Yeah, Michael's awesome. I didn't like what they were going with the whole like supernatural cult thing with him.
Oh God, Halloween 6 was a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, but that was how it was with the 80s. It's like, they had to find a way to bring Jason back and make him into a zombie and everything.
And I love that stuff about those movies. I love how over the top it gets. It just keeps trying to one up itself, and that makes for entertaining film, if not necessarily good film.
The zombie Jason, that worked out well a little bit, but the whole, just the cult thing and explaining why Michael was able to get injured a lot and be able to come back. It just, I don't know. It was just done really weird.
Wasn't great.
I'd rather watch Halloween 3 before I watch any of that.
Dude, Halloween 3 is so underrated.
Oh, I know it is.
Halloween 3 is great. Unironically great.
Yeah. And I love how like the last movie, they actually brought like the paying homage by having the three kids with the mask.
Yes, no, it's dude, those new Halloween flicks I love them. I cannot wait for Halloween Ends to come out.
Oh yeah, but like you said with Jamie Lee Curtis, like I know I talked about it with some of the female guests that we've had on the show. Just is really awesome because with the 80s, now a lot of days, every time when you see a female movie, like especially with the movie Prey, people made a big argument about it being feminism and everything. But horror movies in general, most of the person that kills the monster are female, and
I think if you're one of those people who complain about women in your horror movies, you don't really like horror movies, or at least you are probably relating to the wrong person on screen.
Exactly.
Prey's great. I don't want to hear it, guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know. I watched the whole movie in Comanche language.
I wasn't brave enough for that one, but
a great movie.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you're a big video game person, but some of the people are on here. Do you have like a favorite scary video game of all time?
I don't play a lot of horror games. I'm actually, contrary to what books I put out, I'm a bit of a wimp. Especially, I grew up in the 2000s, so that was like torture porn capital of the world during that time.
Yeah, I hate that.
I can't do gore. Like, there was a point we were, my friends and I all sat around and decided to watch Hereditary.
Yeah. And
after the event that happens within like the first 10 minutes, I got up and left the room, and I refused to watch any more of it. Yeah. I can't do a lot of visceral horror, which is why I like slasher so much, because it's so like, it's cartoonish, it's over the top. I can't take
even
with seriously.
Even with John Carpenter's The Thing, it's body gore, but not like
there's
I always say it.
There's a level removed from reality there.
Yeah.
Which I like schlocky horror. Horror that actually makes my stomach turn, I can't do. So a lot of the horror video games like that, like I can't imagine playing Resident Evil in VR. I just can't.
Yeah.
That just makes that makes me cringe every time I think about it. The last like big horror games I played, I was probably a teenager. I played Dead Space back in the day. And those are renowned in their own regard, but I don't think they're held up today as particularly groundbreaking horror games. But
I know they're coming out. I know they're coming out with the. I'm definitely gonna play it because I loved the movie as a kid, and it's one of the greatest horror comedies ever. Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the video game. That's gonna be awesome.
Killer clowns. That's also a tradition in this household.
Yeah,
The nightmare merry-go-round, my
yeah,
man. And
but
I
yeah,
love.
yeah, but yeah, they're making a video game. You could
I
play as
didn't
the
know that.
clown.
I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, you
What?
go.
Okay, I'm here.
Yeah, go on
I'm
the
here for it.
YouTube. Yeah, go on YouTube. They have a video trailer.
Oh
Literally, you
hell
could play as like the people trying
no.
to, save. Basically, the survivors are supposed to help the other townspeople to escape, or
Hmm.
you destroy the circus tent, or you play as the clowns with your ray guns turning people into cotton candy, and then you have like the popcorn launcher.
I love
Just
that.
I'm not gonna go too much detail, but when you watch the trailer, you're gonna love it. And
Oh, I'm here for it.
I actually have a T-shirt. I'm not wearing it now. I'm wearing a Pennywise T-shirt, but yeah, definitely one
Oh,
of
yeah,
those
that's
movies.
related. That's tangential.
Yeah, but definitely one of those movies where me and my brother used to watch it on VHS over and over and over again until
Hmm.
it completely broke.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, and you were saying you're 2000. I'm a at the end of the month I'm gonna be 37, and just I love during the 80s and 90s where you could go to the movies like Blockbuster or Hollywood Video and just pick up B-rated horror movies that
Hmm.
you've never heard of, and they're just amazing and
Hmm.
just come such big cult classics, you
Yeah.
know.
Or you get an amazingly bad B movie.
Yeah,
I so I turned 30 in December,
gotcha.
and so we did video rental stores a bit when I was growing up,
Yeah.
not a ton, but I found a bunch of like those dollar dive bin movie collections where they have like six like public domain trashy B movies, and I distinctly remember getting one with what is it, Attack of the Bee Women or something
Okay, yeah.
about. It's horrible, it's bad, but man, just the it's a golden age where you can take any bad idea you've got and put it on film, and it can be seen by the masses. It's great.
Oh yeah, for sure. I could definitely tell you one thing with me being like, and you said it yourself with the whole torture porn. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that.
Mhm.
I do write my own stuff and I do the artwork and coloring too. Just when it comes to gore, I always say it and I'm never going to let it down. I don't know why people find the human centipede uh, interesting. I hate that movie.
Oh,
And then they made two other movies.
I mean, well, okay, I can understand why they made sequels because the
Yeah.
first one was such a shock to the system that
Yeah.
word of mouth made it successful. But
Literally word of mouth.
word of yeah, that
Yeah.
Centipede. I didn't even make it through Centipede.
Yeah.
I don't think I even got to the Centipede. As soon as the IV rips out of the arm, I'm done. I'm done. I'm like, all right, yeah, I can't. I'm out. No, thank you.
But see, that's what's great about some of these other movies, like Jordan Peele. With Us and Nope and stuff
Hmm.
like that. You know, it's not like super gory, but it's suspenseful, and you don't know what's going to happen next. And that's
Yes,
what's great about horror movies like that, where they're having you at the edge of your seat because of that.
suspense
When
thrillers are
yeah,
phenomenal. And
mhm,
actually, I mentioned earlier that our theater does a bunch of retro films. Just this past weekend, we went
yeah,
and saw Jaws on the big screen.
oh,
And
nice.
to see, I mean, I know they had to for practical reasons because that shark looked like junk, but like
Mhm,
the subtlety they had to, the restraint they had to employ
yeah,
in that film to make it as edge of your seat nail biter as it was. It's an achievement in suspense, and I mean Spielberg can't go wrong there.
yeah.
We made it a double feature with the Blob from what was it, 58?
I was gonna say, was it the 50s or 80s? Because
It was the 58.
the 80s was awesome. You
Yeah.
know, there's not a lot of like horror movies that are remakes that
Hmm.
do really well, but that 1980s Blob was really good.
I haven't seen that one. I've only seen the 58 Blob, and
Yeah.
it's great every time. You talk
Oh
about
yeah,
shock.
mhm, for sure. And usually we ask this question, but you pretty much answer it too. Your favorite Universal monster? and
Oh,
we both said Frankenstein. But
yes.
with the Universal monsters, like what monster do you think is really great that doesn't get enough love?
Doesn't get enough love?
Yeah.
Man, that's a you know,
Me personally, I think the Gilmos, the creature from the Black Lagoon, that
I
doesn't get enough attention, which
that
pretty
was
much
my
was
first
his
instinct.
Jaws. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved Gilman as a kid.
Mhm.
I do see a ton of Gilman merch in the
Mhm.
Universal Monster community. I think one that tends to get like I think it might be not so much an underrated thing, more of an
Mhm.
underappreciation is probably Lugosi's Dracula.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
because it's so canonized, right? Like it is
Mhm.
the standard. It's the thing like with Karloff, yes, his Frankenstein's also canonized, but like we are still in awe of Karloff's Frankenstein every time we watch it.
Yeah.
Lugosi's Dracula, I don't know if it's held in quite the same way. It's almost like, oh yeah, that's template Dracula.
Mhm.
You see a lot of Dracula merch and you see a lot of Dracula stuff, but like I don't hear people talking about Lugosi's Dracula in the same breath as Karloff's Frankenstein.
Yeah.
But man, just watching that film and Lugosi's performance, I I don't know. Like I said, maybe not underrated, but maybe underappreciated.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely know, like, the designs are awesome, but,
Mhm.
when you think of the Universal monsters, you get the Mummy, the Wolfman, all that stuff, but people forget, unless you're a diehard, like, horror fan, you had the Hunchback from Notre Dame, and you had the Phantom of Opera that was
That
part
was
of
my other
Universal
one was Phantom.
monsters.
Like
Yeah.
uh, I like Lon Chaney's Phantom is
Mhm.
iconic, and also
Yeah.
Claude Rains's Phantom is iconic.
Yeah.
The Claude Rains version we pull from in the Frankenstein book actually.
Mhm.
Uh,
Awesome.
it, uh, yeah, I would say Phantom's a close second for me for underrated.
Yeah.
It doesn't help that the Phantom didn't have a franchise of his own. It was two movies and one was a colorized remake.
Mhm. So with horror comics and everything like that, like what came first growing up? Was it the horror comic that you first seen or the horror movie?
It was definitely horror movies.
Yeah,
I am a superhero kid through and through.
gotcha.
Uh, superhero comics are my bread and butter.
Hmm.
Um, so I was reading those long before I ever picked up a horror comic.
Gotcha.
Um, but movies were definitely in the wheelhouse. Like I said, I'm a wimp, so I wasn't watching anything like super duper crazy, and it was always with the lights on at like 2 in the afternoon. But
Yeah.
like I remember watching all of the Alien movies and Predator at a decently young age.
Hmm.
Um, and of course, I watched the Universal monster movies before I even knew what uh, the concept was. Like they were playing, they were doing like marathons around Halloween, and my dad, being the saint that he is, like taped them on VHS while they were going on, and so I would just watch those movies over and over and over again.
Gotcha.
Uh,
Gotcha.
so that type of gothic horror really stuck with me, and it permeates a lot of the horror work that I do.
Nice. Now with comics and everything, and of course, people could also well, usually it's going to be Stephen King, but do you have like a horror favorite novelist that really sticks out to you?
You know, I don't read a lot of horror in prose form.
Yeah.
It's something I've always it's a blind spot.
Hmm.
I'm usually always reading comic books, so novels tend to get pushed to the side until I have like a good chunk of time to really sit down with them. And also,
Gotcha.
comics have ruined my attention span, so it's hard
Yeah.
to sit down with a novel anymore. But no, so I don't read a lot of horror in prose form. Now, a writer I used to really like was Scott Snyder, who did Witches and
Hmm.
American Vampire in comics.
Yeah.
I know he did a short story collection called Voodoo Heart, and it's not necessarily horror, but the themes that he pulls from can be very unnerving because it's so personal. It's a personal kind of horror. Horrible things aren't necessarily happening to people, but there's this like anxiety that drips from the page. And I think it's a great short story collection. But that's probably as close as I get to horror in novel form.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, with you as the creator and everything, and writing all these horror comics and sci-fi comics, do you feel that when you first started, it was hard to really like grasp, because it being a horror comic and not a movie, was it really hard for you to like really grasp, like, okay, this is where a jump scare has to be in the horror comic? Because
Um,
you it's hard to really determine when to really do that, and then how to really impact that, because that you have to try to sell that.
yeah. This is gonna sound super uh, super dumb, but no, I
No.
never struggled with it. I basically I write on instinct a lot of the time,
Hmm.
so I'll just write, and then at the end of it, I decide if it works or not.
Okay.
And like my first foray into horror was doing the ash cans, right? Like 8 pagers.
Yeah.
So I had to do setup and payoff very quickly in 8 pages. And horror actually was a great exercise in doing that because a
Because
lot
it's
of
so fast paced.
it's so fast paced, and it allows that we actually we figured this out after we had finished publishing a lot of them, that a lot of our horror comics in like by page 6 was always a splash page reveal of the monster because of the way the book was kind of pacing itself,
Yeah.
like the beats, the cadences, all led up to that moment. I don't know that horror is necessarily any different than pacing any other type of story on a
Hmm.
basic level,
Gotcha.
because if you're used to just writing like a standard like day in the life uh, kind of story,
Yeah.
like you're still going to pace things with your start the story, you get
Hmm.
your climbing action, your climax, your denouement, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Every story follows that structure. It's just horror gets to be punctuated a little bit more with a few more ticks and bumps and scares.
Yeah,
So
because most jump scares with horror comics, it either has to be take up the whole page or
mhm,
most of the page. Just if you have a small little box as the jump
mhm.
scare, it's not going to sell.
It's a page turn thing.
Hmm.
And with comics, I mean, the jump scare is great because it's built into the page turn.
Yeah.
Uh, so no, I don't think it was very difficult to learn how to write for horror. I think I may change my mind if I write more long form horror, where you have to continuously just build suspense and build
Yeah.
suspense. That is actually an area that Wells and I haven't touched actually because we've written such short horror fiction. And Frankenstein definitely has horror in it, but it's got more of an action bent.
Gotcha.
So it's I don't know. Maybe I'll change my tune and I'll eat my words when I have to make a long form horror uh, story. But as of right now, I haven't had it be any more difficult than any other kind of story.
Gotcha. That's cool. So we're pretty much at the 55 mark. So, appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Definitely have you on again. And if you could bring your co-writer, that'd be great.
Oh yeah, Wells would love to be here. He eats horror up just like I do. So
Yeah.
it'd be great to have him on, and your co-host as well. And then
Yeah.
we'll just nerd out about horror stuff.
Yeah. And, as I say to all the people on here, if we ever have like a night where it's like we're not like interviewing someone new and we're just doing a broad topic, like sometimes we like to just like dedicate it to a certain movie. So I
Yeah.
know we're at one point going to talk about Silence of the Lambs and
Okay.
other stuff like that. So, I'll give you a shout out if you ever have time, you and your co-host,
Yeah.
and just discuss what we like about certain movies. So,
Oh yeah, no, we love just shooting the shit. It's great.
all right. Well, thank you everyone who joined in the chats. Thank you everyone who's gonna watch it after afterplay. Go follow him, show him support, subscribe and get the book from the Kickstarter. It's really good from what I've seen, and just the story is like something fresh. And that's what I love about comics and horror comics, especially that you could have a story like Frankenstein and have so many stories that aren't being told. You just need to just put your heart into it and it'll come to you. So
Absolutely. Well, hey, it's been great being here. You can find me on Twitter at Dalton K Shannon or any other socials that matter at Dalton K Shannon. He's going to post the link for the Kickstarter. We hope to see you there. And it's been so much fun. Thanks for having me.
not a problem. Let me get that link up. All right. All right, everybody. Well, you have a great night and see y'all next week.
Adios.